So hi everybody, my name is Wendy. I come from Business Information Systems, Cork University Business School, University College Cork. Myself and my colleagues here today worked on H2020 funded project for several years with 9 consortium partners. UCC was the Irish partner and Sotiris was from Hebes and he was the Greek partner. So just to give you a bit of background, the purpose of the website was actually this e-learning educational website. So it's basically for the home energy consumer to go on a self-paced e-learning, free e-learning website to learn about how to save energy in the home. So it's some tips there about how to improve your home, how to behave in a more energy sufficient way, and really the website takes them through a ladder of change. So if we go to the first slide. So here you can see that the website was actually designed over a period of years with, we have partners in Belgium called SDS and they're design consultants and they helped us with the design process. We have partners in Portugal who are citizen consumer experts. We have partners in Finland who are also consumer experts with citizen engagement. So there was a whole hybrid mixture of people in the meeting and in the consortium. So the added benefits for the user is that this platform is freely available and it's up now as we speak. People are using it. And since we started, we had our pilot in 2020 when COVID actually, we started our pilot when COVID hit, which was a bit bad timing, but who could have predicted that? And then we moved on to roll out later that year. And since the inception of the programme, we have had several thousand users. So what the programme will do, you can go onto the website, it's freely available, you have a choice. You can register and sign up. That means your details are saved and your progress is saved as you go online. Or you can just freely browse and go through the whole learning programme without being registered. It's entirely up to you as a user. So next slide, please. So we have a very short video to explain the program.
Do you know the feeling? You really want to make your habits more eco-friendly. You want to make your home more energy efficient, but you don't know where to begin. Should you change your windows or install solar panels or do something else? Most of us want to actively do something to mitigate climate change, but what? You can Google for days on end, but it's still confusing what the best investment is. Where do you get the most climate effect versus your investment? Are the calculations and recommendations you find trustworthy? Instead of Googling, you should go to Act4Eco.eu. Here you will get thoroughly tested and validated recommendations. Here you get easily understandable explanations and directions which are easy to follow. You'll be equipped to deal with craftsmen and other professionals, and you'll be part of a big community with around 10,000 users in 9 European countries. Here you can share experiences and you will learn what your European neighbours is concerned with climate-wise. Watch out though. One climate improvement may lead to another. You might get addicted. 60% of the Act4Eco users return to get advice as how to be even more climate friendly. Check out Act4Eco and be part of the movement towards a climate friendly future.
So as you can see, it's freely accessible. We actually have 5 themes on the page. So just have to write it down because it's quite a few to remember. So we have one called Produce Your Own Energy, and this is about small micro energy creation in your own home, like solar panels. We also have one called Manage Your Energy Consumption, and this is about thinking your daily routines and behaviours in the home, so you can monitor what you're actually doing. Then we have Improve Your Home, and this is about information on insulation and other things like that, improving the actual fabric of the house. Then we have the Become a Smart Consumer. So this talks about ICT, using technology like the smart meters and things like that in the home, what the benefits are and what your options are for the consumer. The last one is called Sustained Efficient Energy Use. And this is, we did call this the rebound effect initially, but then we thought this wasn't a very good term because rebound has many meanings to many people. So sustained energy efficiency use is about maintaining them good energy behaviours in the home and how you can do that. So the next slide is actually should be a link to Act4Eco platform. Okay, so if you look at the top menu bar, you can see we have the actions and then we have the frequently asked questions, but we also have a language button. So if you drop onto the EN, you can see that the site's available in multiple languages. So depending on where you are in Europe, you can access the site. We have a scrollable screen at the top, which just gives you an indication of what sort of content is within the website. And if we scroll down a little bit further down the page, you can see the actions that I mentioned. See, there's an option there to sign in or begin without signing in. Further down the page, we have a video on the project. And then further down, we have information about news and the project partners at the bottom about us, that you can find out more information. So if we scroll back up to the action section, and we press that arrow across, and we go to sustained efficient energy use. And if we just scroll down a little bit more, okay. So you see the picture with the dog and window and the radiator. Each of these bubbles, if you select one, changes. So that's the first step in this particular module. So if I go to that one, yeah, that's number 3. So this is about sustaining sufficiency, so good energy practices in the home. It's a very simple module and easy to do. Obviously, we'd like the user to graduate through each one, but it's quite, you can move around as much as you like as a user. And you'll notice that as you change from one to the other, there's a label there that helps you understand what would be the cost implications for you if you were going to take this action. What's the difficulty of following this learning module? And what would be the CO2 impact? So if we go back to number 3, don't mind. And we begin without signing. Yeah, so yeah, it can be a bit fiddly, you have to get used to it. It's a website you have to become familiar with. And so you have to agree every time you come in, as part of the GDPR process. So what we can see here, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see that what we're giving the user is some textual information, but very simple, very easy to understand, not complicated language. And it's setting up the stage for the next screen. So just go next. Again, it's the same process. And it guides them through step by step, reading through the different options. So at the end, if we just go to the quiz, I think if you scroll up a bit and just go to the quiz. So at the end of the session, the users get this option to fill in the quiz to see if they'd actually remembered and learned something from the process. And they can go through the different pages of the quiz. The intention here is that not only do they read and learn something, but they actually decide to make a behavioural change. By completing the quiz, it stimulates the memory and also incentivises them to actually do something. So that's a very whistle-stop tour of the website. I could go through a lot more, but I don't think you'd need that because it's really a self-directed product. It's something that you do by yourself. And as you say, you can set your own pace. So you can go in and find out what you like, really. So I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Stephen, who's going to talk about the next section. Thank you.
Thanks Wendy, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to start off by going through a bit more of the context of the project. So as Wendy mentioned, it was a consortium of 9 different countries. And in the pilot phase, the idea was that we would launch it across the 9 countries and reach about 10,000 users. So it was a bit of a tall ask. And also just to quote up front, open e-learning, which is free e-learning platforms, anyone can sign up. There's no need for eligibility criteria like you might find in other e-learning courses where people have to have qualifications beforehand. It was available to absolutely anyone with an interest in energy efficiency and sustainable energy consumption. The biggest challenge associated with that is that research suggests in most open e-learning platforms, the drop-off rate is as high as 97%. So first and foremost, trying to create a platform which was going to be engaging was a huge challenge. And then secondly, trying to launch across 9 different countries with different climates, different type of population needs, education levels, again, was going to be a big challenge for us. So the consortium across 9 countries, we had also experts across lots of different areas. Wendy and I come from business school in University College Cork, so we came with the expertise of user engagement and behavioral change when it comes to technology. We had Stirs, who will be talking later as the energy expert, alongside the Board Technology and the coordinator. But I guess first off, we had to just understand who we were going to try and target. And we did some initial research, which was trying to figure out, well, first and foremost, what do customers need from this platform? And a lot of it has been spoken about today very well, actually, by the likes of Niall earlier and other colleagues. But firstly, people tend to be more price conscious. They think first and foremost about the cost of energy. Equally, comfort comes into the equation. And when seasonal changes, that's also obviously a concern in Ireland. We consume more energy in the winter. So trying to develop a platform which caters to all these needs, and then equally across lots of different countries, like I say, big challenge. We also realised there are challenges, people also feeling that this is a global energy crisis that we're currently dealing with, and what can I, as one Irish male living in rented accommodation, do about that when China is emitting high volumes of CO2? So it was trying to make people aware that they can take action, they can take concrete actions. So Wendy went through, kind of like she said, the whistle stop tour. We start off at a very basic level of motivation. So showing that these actions do add up, and simply making people aware that every time you put on the kettle and you fill it up all the way, even though you need 1 cup of tea, that's an efficient energy use. Equally, the example earlier of the boilers, leaving them on. Wendy also mentioned about rebounds. So oftentimes people invest in LED bulbs, but they leave them on longer because they go great. That's efficient now, so they don't have to worry about it anymore. Or equally more efficient boilers and just leave it on as well. So we were, again, just trying to get people aware of these kind of things. And then just the small actions they could do. So when you go into the platform, it starts off quite a low level. Simple things like draft proofing, understanding your energy bill, just making people aware of how to understand that when it comes to switching providers, what they can do about that. Right up then to higher level stages when it comes to maybe installing some kind of renewable energy system or heat pumps, for instance, solar panels. You obviously need some kind of expert engagement in this as well, but the platform is kind of the first step in getting people again to know what they can do. So it is a stage-based model, like Wendy said, it's from motivation to exploration to action. And at the end of every part of the platform, there's a quiz that just tries to get people to think, well, what can I do now? So it was also going to be based on peer-reviewed sources. In the video it was mentioned, well, yes, Google has all this already. So you type in and you get 1 million links on, say, draft proofing. We wanted Act4Eco to be a kind of one-stop shop, and equally because of the different consortium partners, each with different area of expertise, we're able to gather a large volume of sources across countries and also different bodies to, again, provide that one place that consumers can go, regardless of their knowledge. But again, there was a lot of challenges. Stirs will talk more about that as well and what we've learned. I think the big thing for us was recognizing that a one-size-fits-all doesn't necessarily work. And in particular, with open e-learning, it's not like a master's program where people come in and they have undergraduate. It's not even like undergraduate where people come in with leaving cert. This can be available to anyone, even those who dropped out of school early, maybe have primary level education, so forth. So trying to create content which is engaging for people, again, who maybe have also no idea of what energy means in the household, how they can go about changing things. That's step number one. Step number two is then creating assessments and quiz, which also appeal to people maybe who have some background in this, because we don't want to completely disengage those either. So having this kind of stage-based model, graded model that eventually you build up and develop more expertise and feel more confident. Equally, if you're already somewhat confident, you go in at higher levels and I think you're engaged in that part. So yeah, it's an evolving research project that we're working on as well. We've looked at the consumer side. We more recently looked at the user engagement side and have written papers in that, which we're happy to share. But I guess, yeah, it's a really, I think, interesting proof of concept. It was never done before, to our knowledge, trying to cover so many different countries and again, make it available for free. The sustained running of the platform is now something that we're looking into, and possibility of additional funding or reaching out to new partners. And actually, sorry, what's next on this? So yeah, it's available, as Wendy said, in 12 languages. There's the platform in the back, which is Engage Suite, which provides that functionality. And I think in the future, expanding it further, we've spoken about other continents even, where maybe these needs are even more particularly pronounced. Wendy and I wrote a piece for a UK website. It got translated into Indonesia. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hits, way more than Ireland, which is kind of interesting. So maybe Indonesia is our next target market. As well, expanding into maybe different areas of sustainability. The platform itself, I think, is something that, again, can expand on. So we're now looking to the next steps. Again, Teresa will talk more about that. And yeah, maybe next slide as well. So the coordinator was Lars Kluber in Data Board of Technology. So at the moment, the consortium is, I guess, looking for next steps really. And again, Teresa, I'm going to start stealing your slides, so I'm going further into that. But it is, I guess, initially the idea as well of building a more community-based e-learning platform, which of course didn't quite work out in the COVID scenario. But I think we have found from research as well, similar to what has been mentioned previously, people are more likely to take action when they feel that their peers are doing the same, because their neighbors installing new windows, suddenly they're interested and they want to know what they can do similarly, what benefit it can have. So the original idea was to have this community platform in here as well and have groups meet locally using the platform. Something that didn't work out but could in the future be revisited. And yeah, I guess eventually just expanding out to see how you engage on our expert sources as well. We've created an initial step of peer-reviewed sources, which we built into the platform, but again, the opportunity for further expansion. The buzzword of the day is gamification. That's something as well we want to build more into when it comes to leadership boards. But long story short, we did achieve the target. We did reach 10,000 users, and the original aim of getting people to complete actions as well, not just visit the page and drop off, was demonstrated also, despite all the challenges of COVID. So I think it's really good first step, but it is only a first step, and like say, very welcome to open opportunities in the future as well. Which then is on to sisters. Let's move on.
Okay. Hello, my name is Fotis Papadelis. I represent IBIS. IBIS. This project was responsible for designing the content guidelines. So I would like to say a few things about that first. But before that, as Steven mentioned, the real innovative part of the EcoDo was not the idea of e-learning per se. The e-learning concept is based on a premise that says if you give out tips, that you can do this, you can do that. This may or may not be very effective, but if you convey knowledge, if you explain to people how something works, or why specific practice is more or less efficient, then probably they can consistently make better decisions. And this is why the learning concept, why to convey knowledge. The innovative aspect of EcoDo was the community. The idea that we could have small groups of consumers that could help each other in exploring, let's say, a journey towards energy efficiency and using the content from the platform as a guide to their directions. This part didn't happen mainly due to COVID. So we're left with the content and the part. Regarding the content, when we first decided, okay, let's draft some content, it's easy to say, but hard to decide what exactly is that you want to present. So we follow some principles. One idea was, and actually that was specific thing, let's imagine what our clients are, what our users are. So we did a series of use cases and we said, let's say that this specific type of users will actually visit the platform for this specific reason. For instance, nowhere in the content we say to a consumer, you should replace your heating system. Or if you replace your heating system, you should do this and that. But there is content that says, if you have decided already to replace it because it's old, it's broken, etc., you have decided, for instance, to go for the gas boiler, then this is what you should look for. So the idea is to always start some prototypes, some idea of whose particular needs we want to address the platform, and then create the content assuming that this is why they become and use the platform. The other thing that we did is, Stephen mentioned, okay, let's Google it. So we decided a few questions, let's say. One of the very early ones was if one should invest in heat pumps in Greece, for instance. And I said, okay, let's say Eco2 doesn't exist. What will you do if you want to find information? You go to the internet. Took a list of different sources and websites, and then we filtered out websites where you had opinions or data from sellers or installers, because maybe they were right, but they were not impartial, and also excluded foreign, where you can have someone ask a question, and then someone says, it's a great idea, and someone else says, it's a bad idea. So anything that you have in the source of contradictory opinions, you removed it. And for the questions that we couldn't find enough impartial and credible information, for that, we decided to create content. And another thing, the last thing that guided content development, was this idea that to some extent we should be able to individualize information. For instance, one of the very first things that we started with was this tip that says if you lower your thermostat by 1 degree during heating, you get this percentage of savings. It's dependent of your house. But it's in a very efficient house, you don't get anything. In very inefficient, you get. And one thing we did is that we actually try to find, let's say, the boundary conditions. So when does a specific recommendation that we provide actually make sense, and what probably not? We succeeded in doing so for some content, not for all the actions, the themes. But generally speaking, the idea was that the more individualized it is, the more tailored it is specific needs, the recommendation, then the most probably it is that it's credible. And if you say something credible, then many users will accept it. Remaining recommendation. Okay, this was about the content. Now, next steps. Possible steps. So, we know that we verified the content before the deployment, and we know that people found it interesting. We haven't done any impact assessment, like asking people at the end of the project or something like that. What was the actual impact? But we assume that, okay, it positively affected some people. But one way or another, if you really want to have an impact, you should be able to provide personalized guidance. The way I see it, even if you try to create boundary conditions and present different use cases and etc., individualized advice is much more representative advice. Now, this is a market gap, but not necessarily market opportunity, because who would do it? Who would actually provide this engagement? Recommendations and guidelines, especially for residential buildings. So one idea could be to use energy efficiency pattern that already exists in a lot of countries. We have, for instance, in Greece, the program of transfer here, parts, the energy efficiency improvements. Why not use some of this money to actually facilitate the market of small ESCOs and actually reaching and supporting a large number of homes themselves. In Greece, if you want to get the subsidy for an energy efficiency retrofit, you actually go to your account, not to an ESCO, because it makes much more sense to have someone that knows how to make the application, but to actually go to someone give the guidance on what makes sense or not. Why not actually try to foster market of ESCOs? That's for accountants. And also, why not support innovations that come from ESCOs? And this idea comes from another project where we found an interesting program in Germany that was called Energy Efficiency Meter. We thought that energy efficiency meter was something about measuring energy efficiency. We contacted them because we were interested in that part. It wasn't like that, it was a very different thing. It was a very interesting idea. And the idea was, instead of subsidizing directly building owners, provide support for ESCO companies to create innovations and smart solutions that actually create pipelines of projects. It has some issue with the way we implement it, but conceptually, it makes sense. It's a good way to actually try to bring this market gap. That's one of them. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, it's a good thing to provide disaster information, but also data. And one thing that we have seen again and again in different levels, from the building owner level to actually discussions about if you watch discussions in the financing efficiency group of the European Commission, you will see that again and again the question comes, okay, what's the data that supports this specific expectation of rewards based on energy efficiency? There is always a lack of data here from different levels of the chain. So, okay, creating platforms that contain good practices is a nice thing. Creating platforms that contain actual data from actual buildings, it's actually an equally more important thing than actually driving energy efficiency and creating incentives for adoption. And this is about why. It's a case in France, which actually I liked it very much. We used it as a reference in another project. This idea that you can scroll, find actual buildings, find what's happened in these buildings in terms of measures, and actually see numbers, what are the savings and results. I think this is actually quite useful. Okay, I think there's just one more slide. Yes. But there's, and this slides brings the equal to energy over equal to itself. Okay, it's not a project that focuses on energy poverty, only indirectly in the same. But okay, this comes from something that we try to do. We didn't succeed. The idea was you have support for energy efficiency. Public. Fine. Why do you need it? Why do you use public funds for energy efficiency in buildings? Because there is an overall social benefit that, okay, you never directly quantify, and you never directly measure the actual impact. But, okay, we can say there is. Why not use direct this money also to address energy poverty? It makes sense. What is the problem? The problem is that in many cases, people who suffer from energy poverty live in rented houses. So we don't want to upgrade the house that's rented because people may live. And what we have actually done is that providing additional money to the owner that he can actually raise the rent. So we're trying to use this idea of bill financing in order for savings, let's say, to follow those people that suffer from energy poverty, even if they live in apartments, go to different apartments. Probably we did it in the wrong way because we actually focused on getting on board utilities. We had utilities in Germany, for instance, EWP, and utilities in Greece, Tripoli or something like that. There are refineries, but they also benefits. They send the retailers. And it didn't work. And in hindsight, we understand that for this to make sense, it has to be top down. So there must be some policy push, some regulation, intervention, so that utilities are interested in action. Because for all big financial utilities, for utilities to learn. So that was an add-on slide, trying to say something about energy poverty in general. So that's my part.